And we're live with the SP Guru, Jeff.
The what?
The SP Guru, the guru of SPs.
No, not SP Spaz.
SP Spaz, right.
You gotta get it right, yeah.
Right.
Don't be doing any off-branding.
Okay. Right, so we're going to do one function today, so we can Jeff can do his thing.
Spitting. We're gonna do spitting. That's the function. You ready?
Here we go. Yep. Well, I'm glad on the other side of the screen. There's no danger. Right, so we're going to talk about this S.E.E function here, and first of all, we'll give the folks a bit of context actually, because we can talk about how Jeff views it. So we can. I've got this little diagram I did a while back of the SP traits and their sort of goals and things. So, like Jeff, if you talk about what you think the key things are that define, let's say, define your type, and then we can compare it with the profile.
Define my type. We're awesome, and
That's one.
We're shiny and sparkly, and we like to dance around and be goofy and make fools of ourselves. As long as somebody else is there to enjoy it, you know.
Right.
We don't really
So
like doing it for ourselves.
Right.
And
So
it's not as fun.
Yeah. And the redneck name, because didn't have the Latin name for it. Right. Anyway.
You really don't want to let that go, huh?
No, well, you're the one who came up with it.
No, I'm not.
No, not that one. No, you didn't come up with the. That's too. You have higher standards than I do. You're the one that did say, though, you came up with the idea of to show how close the entertainer and the composer are, that if you use the sort of the double-barreled name of entertainer performer and entertainer composer, that shows how close they are. It is a sort of a branch that just they branch off from the entertainer category.
There was a piece of music called The Entertainer. I forgot who wrote that though.
Okay. Let's get some wannabe J on this. Right. So it says that the wannabe J. That's what Jeff has called me. The wannabe J. The wannabe J. Let's get a hold of this hangout. So apparently, one of the three self-image things of artisans are artistry. So how does that show itself for those artisans in sort of everyday life for the average artisan? Not that I'm saying any of them are average; they're awesome in their own ways.
Well, I mean, all kinds of different ways. I mean, that's kind of hard to, because I mean, there's so many different ways you can be artistic, like in your life. You know, just I think when people hear that, they tend to think like people that's actual occupation or career is an artist of some kind. But the thing is with typology, it's not just about circumstance and what you actually choose to do as far as careers and stuff like that. It's just about like how your natural instincts are. So like, artisans want to be artistic just in their daily life and the stuff they do, like the way they express themselves, you know. And there's a lot of that runs the gamut from stuff that's like fine art type stuff all the way to things like martial arts and athletics and, you know, cooking and origami.
Yeah.
And then all the kinds of different, verbal type arts, from being a DJ on the radio to, an MC of a contest to just telling jokes to rapping to, whatever way you express yourself, whether it's physical, with your hands or with your mouth or with your body in other ways, or, whatever way you do that. I guess politics could be an art too, or demonstrating things, street magic, showing houses, selling things, being one of those auctioneer guys, that's like, we got 35 over here, that 35, that 35, I have 40, I have 40, it's one of those type of deals, So there's like millions, billions of ways to express that.
How does it, in terms of like, because there'll be some SJs like that as well. What are the sort of differences that you've observed between the way SPs show artistry and SJs show artistry?
Well, again, I think one of the reasons I liked the book Brains and Careers by David Kersey so much is he talked about how, anybody can do anything, but for people that do stuff that's not as much natural to them, they have to work harder. So, I think there are SJs that are in artistic occupations, and they can certainly be involved in artistic activities. They could be someone who's, teaching arts and crafts at a school or a church or something like that. So, there's certainly plenty of situations where they'd be involved in artistic things. But I think, again, they'll have to work harder to achieve the level of success because it doesn't come as naturally to them. And just like everything else, with the SJs being sort of traditional and kind of wanting things to be done in a certain way, certain structure, whatever, they're going to be less freeform, less impulsive in the way that they do that. So their artistry will be probably more by the book most of the time. Let's follow the rules or the steps that have been given to us for how we're supposed to do this. Even somebody who's like a comedian, like I personally think that Jay Leno is an SJ.
Yeah.
And he does stand-up comedy, but there's a very certain formula to it. Kevin James is another example, I think, is probably. And so to a point, their comedy is a little more predictable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't funny to people, because they're still telling jokes. It's just that the jokes tend to be very kind of traditional style. There are certain follow a certain formula that's pretty predictable in terms of how they do it.
Even the stuff where he plays off the audience not laughing, that's predictable as well. The way he has pre-prepared remarks to say based off of that.
So there's less likely that an SJ comedian would have a whole lot of give and take with the crowd. Like if they were getting heckled or something like that, they obviously have to deal with that, but they wouldn't relish that, I think, as much as an SP comedian do. SP comedians, it's almost like they welcome something like that because it's sort of like a challenge to, I've got to ad lib, I've got to adapt to this situation and come up with something funny on the spot. Whereas I think SJ comedians are more likely to try to steer out of that situation faster and get back to the program. That's just my guess. I from what I know, but
it's good.
I'm sure there's plenty of other examples, but in general, I think the SJ artistry is going to be a little bit more. And I hesitate to keep saying predictable because it sounds like I'm, insulting them or something. But it isn't really. It's just they prefer when things are more predictable. It's like they want to follow the formula, follow the plan, and have it come off without a hitch, as they say.
So
so they're usually better prepared, actually.
Yeah. So yeah,
but
another
try to find the positive spin of that. Yeah.
But another comparison we can make in terms of artistry is because you're big into music.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the SP and SJ musicians compare in their artistry?
Well, again, I would say that SJ musicians are going to be more about learning a piece of music and playing it the same every time. Get as good as you can of playing it, but you don't like deviate from it as much. Um, SJ musicians are probably more reliable in the sense that they would go out and do the show every night reliably the same way, and they're not going to probably get tired of doing it, because it's just like this is what we do and this is how you do it. Whereas there's been a lot of so if there was a band that had more SJs in it, you might actually have the band stay together longer, or
Oh
at least
yeah.
have less upheaval in the band because it's just sort of like you know they're willing to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. With SPs, there tends to be we get restless and want to change it up, want to do something else, and so when you have multiple people in a band or something, they'll start to butt heads about because they don't agree on how to change it up or how to do it differently, and so there's more tension, and stuff created.
Yeah. Because what I would think with musicians is that the early phase of putting the practice in, the SJ is more likely to like do that practice to really hone their.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing I would say is that um, SJs tend to be more business oriented.
Right.
Not that SPs can't be successful in business, but SJs sort of have that natural attraction to like the business side of things. So if you have uh, musicians that are SJs, that they may be more aware and more on top of the business side, you let less chance the band goes bankrupt
Yep.
because of bad deals or whatever, or they just waste, they splurge on a bunch of stuff they don't need and whatever because they're following an SP impulse to just, let's buy a
Yeah.
solid gold tour bus or whatever that happened.
I was just thinking the SJ band might clean the hotel room rather than destroy it.
Yeah.
And what do you think about like, most people in sport? We think are SPs. What do you think? Maybe some noticeable SJs in sport.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's sort of along that same lines, in that the SJs have a natural kind of tendency to gravitate towards management and leadership. So in sports, often the players that sort of become the team leaders are often the guardian athletes. So they're not always necessarily the best ones on the team in terms of the raw athletic ability, but they have that leadership quality and they have that consistency where people on the team that may be more athletically gifted still look up to them because they see them as sort of like they're the steadying influence. I think about my favorite baseball team over the recent years, Texas Rangers. They had a long time veteran player Michael Young, and I think he is most likely an SJ. Um, and he was known as a team leader, as a reliable person. Put in his work every day. He led by example. He wasn't a really loud or boisterous guy. He was just, I think he was probably an ISTJ. And one of the other players on the team for a while, C.J. Wilson, pitcher, he described Michael Young by saying, "Whatever the opposite of ADD is, that's what Michael Young has." So it was basically about how like he's unflappable,
Yeah.
always focused,
Yep.
and steady in terms of doing the same thing every day, putting the work in, and getting steadily better, and being that guy that people look to as he's what you aspire to be as far as like his work ethic or whatever.
Um.
So
Just
And
like,
of course, naturally, a lot of those same SJ athletes end up becoming coaches because they again gravitate towards that leadership role, and so it follows suit that they're going to be when they're not playing anymore than the next step. Whereas a lot of the SP athletes end up becoming commentators or you know public celebrities in other ways. Whereas most I think more of the Guardian athletes are the ones that end up becoming coaches or in the management or ownership of the teams.
also, there's the type of sports that they would gravitate to. I would imagine there'd be a higher percentage of SJs in golf because of the repetition
Yeah, that's
of the
probably
technique.
true. Because they like boring stuff, and golf is boring.
Oh, and also the sort of context of, the sort of social context of golf.
Yeah, the country clubs and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I would agree.
And then just thinking of certain sportsmen in leadership positions, which types do you think Ray Lewis and Mike Singletary are?
I don't really know enough about them to say. I know a little bit more about Singletary because he came from Texas, was at Baylor, and of course he became a coach. So I'd be more inclined to say that he might be a Guardian, especially because when he was a coach, he was pretty conservative when it came to his coaching style. But of course, in the NFL, a lot of coaches are. But yeah, it sort of strikes me as he might be more Guardian.
People criticised him for the way he treated Alex Smith, but then the new coach got rid of Alex Smith as well.
Yeah, well, that's coaches are always going to be criticized. That's pretty consistent no matter what type the coach is.
I think
they're going to have something to say about him if they're they'll criticize them for being too conservative, but then the coaches that will dare to do something different, then they get criticized for being reckless. So
maybe what could have been said about Singletary is that he was a little bit he would use the stick with all the players and not know that some other players it's better to put an arm around them rather than to use the stick with them.
Yeah, well, that's obviously something as a coach you have to learn is that balance. And I think somebody like Greg Popovich from the San Antonio Spurs, who I think is an SJ, probably an ESTJ, he had to learn that balance too. In terms of leading his team because he had that reputation. He was like a ex-Navy guy, and it was like hardcore, old school kind of disciplinary coach. But obviously, in order to become successful when they started winning championships and stuff, he had to be able to realize that you can't always be that hardcore disciplinarian with everybody all the time. You have to be able to back off and sometimes let somebody work on their own problems, or let somebody else on the team talk to them, and to kind of back off sometimes. So you have to find that balance.
Also, I have it in my mind that SJ will like read books on how to do something because like they want all the techniques, and so they would read like other coaching books, especially by people who've won Super Bowls and stuff, and looking up to these role models, and they would like learn all these, and so they would. But anyhow, so we've covered artistry. Now here's the one that I think really covers SPs, and that is audacity. Take it away, Jeff.
Take what away? Where?
Well, tell us all about the audacity of the awesome SPs.
Tell us all about. Do you have 600 hours? I don't think.
No, I'm about to, I suppose.
Like what I tell you about these vague questions where you're like, tell us about something,
Okay.
I don't know how to do that. You got to be more specific.
Okay.
You were on a roll there. You were asking me good questions, and then you just went back to tell us about this thing.
Okay. So when it says in the Kersey book, SP is the self-image is audacity, so they want to be seen as audacious. So okay, I'll ask specifically about you. How has that been for you, and how's that changed as you, and how has that changed as you've got older?
I don't know. Next.
Oh no, I'll try and be a bit more specific. Okay, in which ways have you been audacious in your life?
Not enough, because I suck. But like stuff and things. I think for me, it's like it's. I just think it's more like a comparison thing. It's like the people I'm around are often boring, so I'm like audacious by comparison, just because I dare to be different, because it's my instinct to be so. You know, like the more expected stuff is being around me, the more I want to do something different, change it up. You know. So it's like, even as something as simple as when I go to a restaurant, you know, like going out to eat and everybody else is just like getting the same stuff they always get. I'm the one that's like, oh, there's something new on the menu, I'm going to try this new thing, you know. And it's not even as much about that particular thing is new, or that it sounds so wonderful or whatever. Sometimes it does, but it's more just like being the guy, you know, that's like, I'm not going to just do what everybody else is doing. So, and just, you know, it's like people will say like, how are you doing? And then you're supposed to say fine, because that's just like the response everybody says. But I don't do that, you know. I change it up. I say something like moving and grooving, or, you know,
Dandy.
like a mug, you know. It's like you gotta change it up, and you know, like again, talking about going to restaurants, but I do that a lot. So, you know, the server walks up and is like, "Hi, I'm Steve. I'll be your server today." And I'll be like, "Hi, I'm Jeff. I'll be your customer today." You know, it's like most people don't say that. And, you know, it might give them a little chuckle or whatever, but it's like, you know, it's not like it's some bold and daring thing. It's just these subtle kind of things, but it's just like, that's how I express myself, as, you know, and how I kind of differentiate myself. Is like, you know, every once in a while it's more than that, but, you know, it's like it's hard for me to just pull examples out of the air. You know, I kind of have to be presented with situations.
Well,
people will say, like, I've had people tell me they thought I was brave, and I don't really understand that, but I know that's part of the same thing. You know, so I don't really know why I come off that way to people. But apparently I do to some people. So ask them, I guess, what how I'm that way. Because I've had people tell me that. Even something like doing my YouTube videos, like I've had people say that itself was like that took courage or something. And I don't really understand why people think that, but hey, if they do, then great, you know.
Right, so I've got the dictionary here for audacious, and it's got daring, bold, impudence. Now that's almost what an SJ would call SP behaviors. You impudent child. Maybe you could tell us what that looks like in children.
From Robotech saying, "You wish to do combat, you impudent fool."
I suppose that you can tell that in SP children, they're extra bold, and how it's always something that's there, but maybe it gets tempered as you get older. and you try to find new outlets for it.
Yeah.
Ones that, yeah.
So much of that depends on the environment that you're in, whether you're sort of supported by people or whether it's always getting shut down. You know, my childhood is very different than what I see when I'm out and I see parents interacting with their kids. It's like even the guardian parents, they just they don't seem to be as in control. But you know, I don't know how much of that is like a generational thing or what. But it seemed like with my parents that there just wasn't room for deviating. You know, it's like, and the funny thing is, like my grandmother, an ESTJ, she thought, you know, we were like wild and out of control. But I of course was like, we're ruled with an iron fist. You know, so the perspective is obviously different when you're a kid. You know, you don't appreciate the opportunities that you do have.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if your dad was an ESTJ. Might have been even tougher.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Like, he might have been a little bit more predictable that way, though. So I might not have been as afraid of him because his discipline or his responses to me would have made more sense to me, probably. Would have been more consistent.
I've frequently heard that children need to know where the boundaries are. And of course, with an SJ parent, them being more predictable, the child would know more where the boundaries were.
That's probably true.
What was expected of them.
And probably when, you know, they'd be dealt with for what they actually did as opposed to something, you know, less, I don't know the word for it, but it'd be more obvious what, you know, what was being dealt with.
Yeah, because they'd always be saying, you should do this, you should do that. So you'd know exactly from the ESTJ parent what was expected of you. You might not agree with it, but you'd know.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel now when it comes to my relationship with ESTJs. Is like, even when I don't agree with them, I understand where they're coming from, usually.
Yeah.
Whereas I can't say that with all types. There's some that just seem to be completely out of left field. Don't know where the idea is coming from.
Now, I'll briefly mention something about the science of SPs. This is something we'll go into in future, and that is a certain hormone called dopamine, which has to do with pleasure.
Give me a hit of that dopamine, man.
Well, yeah, and what it is when the SP is being audacious, they feel a buzz.
Yeah.
From being bold and audacious, and they feel like, you've mentioned it before, sometimes it's like because they feel like they're getting away with something.
Yeah.
They have that rush.
Yeah. Yeah, man, totally. Like all up in that.
Or maybe Top Gun. What is it? We have a need for speed.
Yeah.
And then I imagine them injecting themselves or taking a tablet.
But that's the thing, is we don't need to. That's like, that's why it's still my theory that, you know, even though people have this attitude like SPs are all like drunks or stoners or whatever, like I think there's actually more SJs that are, because they need that stuff to like get them to do things, whereas we don't need to. Like we naturally do the same stuff without being on something.
Well, let's do some research on that. I don't know. It's very rare when I'm not prepared to generalize.
That's good. Generalizing is bad.
Yes.
4 broad personality styles. Yeah, let's talk about broads. I like broads.
Here's one. I did this today. I like the comparison between her and Princess Ardella in Buck Rogers. So,
Right.
but the reason why is because I was doing these gags about the costume, saying things like, Hannah, what were you thinking of wearing that thing, that costume? And there you go again. And then the kind of lines you get in Buck Rogers. Great costume, Tiger Man. You going trick or treating?
Yeah, that's great, but what's it got to do with me?
Nothing. We've got to get the subject back on you.
You're just wasting your time.
We're just wasting time. I've got to go back into the SP awesomeness of, and the third one is, oh, Jeff, you know, some people might not have heard it. Do you want to talk about flustered and flayonnaise?
I guess.
Go on, if you like, give us all the details.
Am I back on your camera as opposed to Buck Rogers?
No, you're back on. People can see you when you talk.
Okay. I see. I can't tell, obviously, when you select while you're doing this, it doesn't show up for me.
Oh, no, it's not selected. It's whoever is talking is on screen.
Well, I know that that's the default, but I know you sometimes mess with that, so that's why I was...
Yeah, I know. I'm a beast. Yes.
What Ben is referring to is during my illustrious career with a certain sandwich restaurant, actually 2 different places I worked in mall food court. And if you've never worked or been in a significant time in a mall food court, then let me inform you, usually it's very noisy, except when it's not. But if there's any people, if there's a crowd of people, then it gets very noisy. And generally the acoustics are such where you can't hear someone even when they're right in front of you. But you might actually be able to hear someone on the other side of the food court because of the way the sound's bouncing around everywhere and stuff. But anyway, it's like this cacophony of noise where it's difficult for people to hear. So when you're going down a line making somebody's sandwich and you ask them questions about what they want on it, you don't... It's not really that important exactly what words you say because they can't really hear you all the way anyway. So as long as you get the general gist of what you're asking them out, then they can answer your question. And one of the ways in which I would have fun to keep myself from going crazy with the boring tedium of the job, making all hundreds of sandwiches every day, was that I would come up with new ways of saying the same stuff. So, for instance, when we would ask them what kind of bread they wanted, we'd ask them white or wheat bread, but I would sometimes say something like right or wheat, because again, it's close enough that they know what I'm asking, even if I didn't say the exact word. I had a coworker actually there that would ask people what flavor hot dog they wanted, even though we didn't sell hot dogs. And the thing is, when he would say that, and again, most people would just go ahead and order what they were going to say. It was like they didn't even really sink in that he asked them about hot dogs. Every once in a while, you'd have somebody that would be like, "You have hot dogs?" But most of the time, wouldn't even happen. And yeah, when I got to the point where I would ask a mustard or mayonnaise, then I could say something like flustered or flannaise or crusted or crannaise, because they would hear the ends of the word and know what I said. Of course, there's, you talked about science earlier. There's all these like science things about like how, even when you're reading, if you see enough of the word to recognize the word, that it doesn't have to all actually be written correctly. And it's the same thing in auditory. If you hear enough of it that you pick up what somebody means, then the specific stuff isn't necessarily as important, so you can play around with it. So
there it is. Like this is an example of that, where people can still understand what it means, even though all the middle letters are mucked up.
Right. So same concept, but verbally you can do the same thing. So
yep.
So that's an example of just ways to play around with stuff. Other things I would do would be like when we ran out of the flannaise in the bottle and needed to get some more, the typical thing was you just set it down, whereas I usually would be a little more dramatic than that. So like there'd be one guy on the end of the sandwich unit, and I would pick it up and I would like throw it across the thing down to the other guy, something like that. So now I wasn't like the most skilled at the maneuvering with the bottles. I wasn't quite like doing the Tom Cruise and cocktail thing. Like some people
I was going to mention that.
Some people I worked with were able to do that. I wasn't quite at that skill level, but I still, like to toss things around. And in some cases, I didn't know just how. Like sometimes the people I was working with were closer to me in terms of their, personality or whatever, and so that was fun for them too. Some people I worked with, not so much, and in some cases, I didn't, realize this until a long time later. Like there was a particular guy I worked with who I found out later on is an ISFJ, and I actually worked with his wife later and learned from her a lot of the things that he didn't like about me because he didn't tell me any of them. Because that's a common thing with ISFJs is that they don't want to tell you to your face what the problem is with you. They'll go complain to someone else, but they won't actually tell you so that you can actually change something if it's bothering them. It's like they're just going to fester quietly and then complain to someone else instead of actually telling you where you could actually change to help the situation. So anyway, so I found out later on that some of those things I did with that particular coworker, that he was quite bothered by them, but I didn't have any indication at the time that was the case. So.
Right, so...
Like my most fun day...
Yeah, go on.
...that I ever had making sandwiches, because I didn't spend actual much time making sandwiches, I sort of took the role of the guy in the back who did the other stuff, because that was usually filled by the manager. But that particular day, I was just like, I don't feel like making sandwiches today. I'm going to be this guy, And the assistant manager let me do that, which he could have easily said no, and asserted his authority and said, no, you're not doing that. Get up here and I'll. But he let me do it. And my way of doing that was I got all the stuff done I was supposed to get done, but I had lots of fun with it too. I did things like call the radio station that had a like lunch hour request show and make requests, and they also had a contest they did where you would sing the next line of the song into the phone and you could win prizes. So I did that. So in the middle of lunch in the restaurant, I'm sitting there on the phone singing. And they played it back on the air, of course. And I had a blast. That was like my most fun day ever. And I found out that was why it was hilarious to find out later from, again, this guy's wife, that he was so like angry at me that day because he never told me. Never ever indicated anything to me that he was upset with me. And then I found out later on that I had pissed him off greatly with my antics. But I was having fun.
So it's always adaptability. You're always looking for the fresh, the original, to tweak it, to make it yours.
Yeah, put our own twist on things. Not just do the same boring stuff every time.
Something you talked about before, but not that much, is not in this. The way I'm asking it now is you've acted before, and did you have a desire to like play it in your own way, sort of like if you've like seen it on television or somewhere else before, like, do you want to do it your way, things like that when playing a character?
Yeah. Most of the things that I did in acting were plays, and most of them I had not seen, which was fine with me because I like to, do my own interpretation of the character. And of course, I like improv better than I like stuff that's scripted. So anytime I had an opportunity to ad lib a little bit, not just read the lines as they were written, then I would try to do that. but I was considerate of the fact that I didn't want to throw off the other actors, say stuff that was so far off that they you know, couldn't get their next line, So,
that's something. Another Buck Rogers connection is that the guy that played Buck Rogers, Gil Gerard, said that he would change most of his lines except the CUIE line for for his scene partner.
I knew as I was starting to talk about that you were going to bring that up.
Yes, I'm repetitive. It's my inner SJ.
Yeah, you're more predictable.
Yes. So how about this one, yearning for impact, and has that changed as you've got older? The yearn for impact.
How has it changed as I've gotten older? Well, I guess my circumstances have changed. I mean, I'm not in school, and that was probably my, main environment for trying to make an impact. Although I had other moments, I think when I was a kid, my dad used to have work parties sometimes at the house, and so I had an opportunity when that happened to try to do something to impress the grown-ups at the party.
What age were you when this happened?
Well, I mean, from really young to almost a teenager. So
right.
Several years, but when I had the opportunity to play DJ and be in charge of the music, that was always the most fun because I really liked being able to have the stereo system and the turntable and pick what records to play. You see, kids' records were these vinyl spinny things that never mind. Anyway,
yeah.
And so yeah, that was fun. Being able to pick the music and take requests and stuff, or do with food. When I had that rare opportunity to be the one that cooked dinner or made the dessert or something like that. Or got like snacks and stuff, things like that. Opportunities to kind of have an impact in terms of what I did, where I wasn't just blending into the background. I found some way to actually stand out in some way. When at school, it was often things like some sort of performance aspect, and in classes where we did performances in some way, or we did something, where I found something I could do, like in PE class. We did in sixth grade we did floor hockey, and I was the goalie, and I was a really good goalie. So it was like all of a sudden, a lot of these kids that pretty much would ignore me and didn't take notice of me at all of a sudden they were like, coming up and giving me high fives and stuff and saying, "Hey, great job," because I, didn't allow any goals. So until we got to the championship game, and then I gave it 3 goals, and then they all hated me. But before that, that's the way sports goes. It's very, "What have you done for me lately?" And you that,
yeah.
In that moment of truth, and then all the love you've been getting just goes away.
Yeah.
So, I was talking about Michael Young earlier. The same deal with him. I mean, he had a lot of high moments where he had, two different All-Star games where he had the game-winning RBI of the All-Star game. So those were like kind of his, among his pinnacle moments. And then he had other times where it was like a pivotal point in a playoff game, and he hit into a double play, and then all of a sudden everybody's mad at him. So it doesn't matter how high you get in terms of the ladder of success. When you screwed something up, you're going to get a lot of people jumping on you for it. So
I just wondered if the yearning for impact changed as the SP gets older.
Well, like I said, I think the venue or the environment you do that in changes.
Right.
You have more experience, so maybe you have more of an idea of the best ways to do that, and you don't maybe waste as much time sort of trying to come up with some way to do that. But I don't know.
Do you think an SJ would say
kind of hit and miss?
Well, do you think an SJ would say to an SP, so you need to grow out? Haven't you grown out of that yearning for impact yet?
They might not use that exact phrase, but yeah, they definitely have the idea that. So this is a basic thing, and I'm not talking about SJs that are necessarily like well versed in typology, because I know some are, and somebody could watch this video and be like, "Hey, don't say we're all the same." But in general, SJs have the viewpoint that they think that everyone is supposed to be SJs. And that if someone's not an SJ, it just means that they haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
And within, if you give them enough instruction or rehabilitation or discipline or whatever it is, like eventually they'll grow into a good SJ like everyone should be. And you can tell them they can be, and this isn't, I'm not talking about just stupid people. Like, I mean, you could be an intelligent, well-educated, well-rounded person who's traveled the world and met lots and lots of people, and they will still basically have that attitude of, I don't understand why people aren't just doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Oh yeah, and the thing is in romance styles is that the actual NP is actually quite like the SJ is doing that to them. Right. In fact, it's even in.
Good.
It's actually in the Kersey profile of the healer, where it actually says that the healer likes being told what to do by, and you get the impression that it matches the healer with the supervisor. There's a little bit in there about. I'll just mention this before we then get back on topic, but in the healer profile, it says, here we go. In the routines of daily living, INFPs tend to be flexible, even compliant with their mates' ideas of discipline. Right. So yeah, what we've got here, we've got so here's the classic that people associate with SP as seeking sensation. And how does that change with age?
I don't know. I think it's less about age as it is about maturity, because I mean, I know 50, 60 plus SPs that are still just looking for that next buzz, wherever it comes from. So it hasn't really changed much. But some people, I guess, through just either their own natural ways or from their experiences, sort of gain a little bit more perspective on that. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay. How about?
But I think there's a lot of factors to that in terms of the environment you grew up in and sort of your own individual morality and things like that, because there obviously are lines that some people cross and others don't, as far as when they're seeking sensation, in terms of that hedonistic quality of pleasure seeking. There are obviously people that they put much stricter limits on themselves, or other people do, on how they go about that, to people that are in environments where they pretty close to literally just do whatever they want to. And so there's obviously going to be a big spectrum in that for what somebody actually ends up doing in their actual actions. There are people that would look at my life and say, I can't believe he's so reckless and irresponsible. And then there are other people who would look at my life and say, he's very conservative and doesn't take any risks or do anything adventurous. So it depends on your perspective on how you view that.
Right, here's an interesting one in report about SPs. Prizing generosity. What do you think of that? Yeah, okay, thumbs up.
Good.
Right, okay. And we've sort of done pleasure seek. What about pleasure seeking?
Yeah, I was just talking about that.
Okay, here we go. Right, there we go. Right, so that sort of like covered how Kersey sees. How about this? We mentioned this in previous hangouts, but yeah, trust or impulse. This interesting one here: optimistic but cynical. Where so is it like you're cynical about? Please give some examples of that. That's
cheddar, mozzarella, provolone.
they're types of optimistic.
Colby.
Okay.
Munster. Blue cheese.
It's a very cheesy answer.
Thank you. Chicken, turkey, duck.
Okay, I understand how like you've talked about how like say ESFPs are cynical of say when you compare them to say like an ENFP, like you've once said that.
Yeah, because ENFPs are all like, man, you just got to join this club and we're going to save the world and everybody's going to be happy and join hands and sing Kumbaya and everybody's just going to join together in their collective awesomeness and feel the amazing power and energy of the together unity of something or other. And yeah, ESFPs are more like, whatever, man, just pass the dip.
So should it be so should it really be optimistic but realistic rather than cynical?
And, to a point, I guess, you know. But again, that we're realistic, but not to the SJs. They don't think we're realistic. Because then we'll be like, hey, I could totally jump that gorge on my skateboard. They're like, no, you can't. What are you talking about? That's totally unrealistic.
It's the Grand Canyon.
So yeah, it's more like I think. Yeah, it's cynical because it's like we're not jumping on the bandwagon, you know.
Right. Gotcha.
Or if we do, it's not because we're like necessarily like super believing in the cause or whatever. It's just because it's, you know, something that's fun or new or interesting or exciting.
Here's the bit which stays with me is they're impulsive and like being that way.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Well, one of my favorite lines from that book. Like when I write it, I tend to like put the like in all caps. They like being that way. And because like that's every other temperament sees the word impulsive as like a weakness or a bad thing.
Yeah.
They're like impulsive is like a list of bad traits. And for us it's like no, we like that. That's good.
Yeah, so
Impulse,
for instance
good.
So for instance, to them being impulsive is being alive.
Yeah. Because we don't like to just do what's expected or predicted. It's like, you know, come up with something different and do it a different way and do what you feel like doing. Like that's why it's, you know, you can have people like I was talking earlier about people that are in circumstances where they can basically do whatever they want and they're still not satisfied because they can't completely appreciate that because it's like whatever it is they're doing, they feel like, oh, I want to do something else. So even people that you would think of, you think of like some movie star and you think, oh, they've got everything they want just handed to them. But if they sign the 5-movie deal with Universal Pictures and they're on movie number 3, that movie star could be like, I'm bored. I don't want to do the last 2 movies. I want to go do something else. And so people's attitudes toward them is, oh, well, they can do whatever they want. But they don't see it that way because they're like, oh, I'm stuck in this movie contract where I got to do these movies, and I don't want to do that. I want to go, ride roller coasters, or I want to drive race cars, or I want to have a singing career, or I want to go jump off buildings, or they just have some kind of, they want to do what they feel like doing each day. And it's like you wake up that day, oh, you're supposed to be at movie rehearsal at 7 in the morning. That's when you end up with Lindsay Lohan, doesn't show up for rehearsal. And everybody's like, what happened? She's always late, just because she doesn't want to go, The less that you, like, the more it becomes just so boring of keep on having to go do the same thing over and over, the more it's just like, no, I want to go do something else. Stop telling me what to do.
Is this thing where SP is just in general like to book authority?
Yeah, and we like to eat headphone wires too. See, watch.
Okay.
Like if you watch SP videos, we're always trying to eat our headphone wires. Not always, but often. If you watch, here's my plug for the fantastic video on my channel, ESFP ESTP Showdown. It's me and DJ R&D, and both of us in the video put the microphone or the headphone wire in our mouths at one time or another. So watch for it.
So I'll have to watch out for these little things. Maybe you're competing with each other with movements on camera or something.
It's not. I don't even think that really is about competition. It's just so instinctual. Like, the more like this thing that's around me, like I need to do something with it. I can't just let it sit there. I've got to like use it for something, man. Like gotta dress it up, and here I'm making like a bow with it, and well, that's cool. I didn't even know I can now. It looks like I've got like a big bar in front of. See, all that is the headphone wire, but because it's close to the camera, it looks like I got some kind of big sword or something, or darkness I can make. And my hand is giant because it's in front of the camera. So like, yeah, stuff, things, movements.
Wow.
Ben said he wanted Jeff on 10. I'm just telling you. And
I'm on. That's good.
I've been kind of subdued. I'm really been more like 7 because I didn't think he could handle me on 10.
Okay, you're fine at the moment.
I'm kind of tired, so.
Okay, so here's one that this is the way based on the input from you, it can be about power, TPs, but it's always about freedom. Is that fair to say about SPs?
What's it?
Okay. If we're defining extroverted sensing, and I think maybe the Socionics definition of extroverted sensing from other people is that it's too much concentrated on the power aspect, where yes, that definition fits ESTPs, but not so much ESFPs.
I think, what I've said before is the power aspect is not as much. See, when I hear like somebody wants power, I think more of, maybe ENTJ, ESTJ type of thing. Powers, and they want to be the decision maker and control, the boss, stuff like that. With SPs, I think usually the power we want is just the freedom to do what we want to do, not having somebody else have power over us, to not be controlled and structured by someone else. We want to have the freedom. So that's, to me, it's like freedom is a better way of describing it, because it's less about power. You know, the power that we want is the power of free will. You know,
Yep.
the ability to do what we want to do, which is freedom, essentially. So.
Yeah, and that is, as luck would have it, that is how Victor defines.
And even somebody like, let's use an example of like, you know, Donald Trump, right? Okay,
Yep.
somebody could say he wants power, he wants to be the president. Okay, but I don't think it's as much about he wants to be, oh, I'm this powerful guy, you know, because he can already have that in business. Like, he doesn't need to do that. Being president doesn't give him of the ability to do anything that he couldn't already do, and actually be able to do better, probably, without being president. Like, he's actually going to be, in some ways, he'll have less power if he got elected president.
Yeah.
But he'll have the freedom to make an impact on so many people with everything that he does. And he already has that just as a guy who's in the arena competing. But if he actually got the job, then his head might blow up, because he's just like so overwhelmed with, man, like, I can call a press conference to say that I ate an apple pie and everyone has to show up because I'm the freaking president, you know? So that's the kind of thing that SP's desire is. It's not power, like, for the sake of power. It's like the ability to impact people, like what you were talking about earlier. It's more of that. It's the impact, and it's the freedom. The power is just a sort of a means to an end.
Right. Now,
it's a way to get attention, or a way to put yourself in the position where you can be impactful in what you do or say.
Right. So, for instance, here, Victor's definition is more in line with yours than in other versions of socionics. So he puts here non-compliance. Basically, non-compliance. The way you say, you don't want to be told what to do. It's the non-compliance.
Where's that?
Here, where it says plus F, power sensing of resistance, non-compliance. Whereas ESTPs, that's more about controlling other people.
Again, I don't think it is necessarily about controlling other people. Even with ESTPs, like, I mean, they sort of enjoy having people that they can influence, but it's still more about what they're trying to do than it is about actually controlling people.
Yeah, I overgeneralized. Right. Yeah. We go back to the where we're going with the.
But you know, they're still not as cool as ESFPs, though. Because we're also like the friendlier ones, and we care about you more. So yeah, I'm not at all biased. I'm very objective, saying that, you know, when I was in the car the other day with my son, and I was like, we were talking about Elaine from Seinfeld, and I was trying to decide if she was an ESTP or an ESFP, or, you know, an ISFP or whatever. I think she's some kind of SP. And I was like, you know, I thought STP because she's kind of a jerk. I realized, like, he sort of reminded me that, you know, that my bias there was like, I immediately start thinking they're more like would be STPs because they're more jerkish. And see, he thinks not quite the opposite, but almost like he says ISFPs are more likely to be the jerks. You know? Anyway, so we have our little friendly rivalry with the T versus F thing, you know.
Right. So here's one that I think is characteristic.
Why do you have the thing about PTO? What's that mean?
Please turn over.
Oh. See,
it like, reminds myself.
Like in when once you're a parent and you see PTO, then it's parent-teacher organization.
Ah, right.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What were you talking about?
That's fine. like the big one for me, win the moment. You've talked about this before. You always want to win the moment.
Yeah.
Even in little things.
Life is a series of moments, and we always want to win it, even if it's just really, really, really like small. It's just like, oh, I told the best joke in this situation, or I sometimes even like just something as simple as like a physical object. Like for instance, here's a spoon and a knife, and like I could be like flipping it around or something, juggling it or whatever, basically throwing it up in the air and catching it and stuff. But it's like even just little subtle physical things. There's like some way to win that by doing it right, doing it good in the moment, whatever it is, you know.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I win.
Have you got any funny anecdotes about that?
Once upon a time, there was a man named Steve Blobberson who jumped off a cliff, and then he...
End of the story. He died. Silly SP.
How are you gonna... You just totally cut off my story, man. I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna have to take the microphone off and leave this interview.
Oh no. I like this one of yours. Yeah, go on.
See that Key and Peele sketch? Where
Nope.
It's like, okay, where the one... well, it's... Key is playing like this talk show host who's kind of like sort of Larry King-ish, and he's got this rapper on his show, and he asked him something about like his personal relationship with some celebrity woman or whatever, and the guy's like, I don't want to talk about that. I said I don't want to talk about that, and then so he tries to like get up and leave the interview, but he can't get like the wireless microphone. I mean, the microphone wire is like all wrapped up in his outfit, so he's trying to take it off, but he can't, and so he's like trying to have his moment where he like throws the thing down and makes this exit, but he can't because he can't get the microphone off. So it's like he ends up like taking his shirt off, and then later he's taking his pants off because it's all wrapped up in the... Yeah, it was funny. Anyway.
I remember you saying, this is a quote from His Jeffness, whatever we do the hell out of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like even when we're doing like YouTube videos about nothing, man. Like, and look, check out this cat, man. Like,
this isn't about nothing. This is about yourself. So it's about something important.
What? What is it about, man? What's it about?
It's about you. Okay,
then. Then you've spent entirely too much time talking about somebody who's not me.
Right. So, and here's one. Here's a line I came up with. I will not be scheduled. Is that like a motto of SPs as well?
British ones.
Okay. I don't know. I should have said scheduled.
I guess maybe like ones from like India or something. Other places the British colonized. Besides America, because we're the coolest colonies. We like totally like. We established
How about
our
this?
own like amazingness and stuff.
And some simpler ones. Live in the now.
Yeah.
Variety is the spice of life. What do you think of that? Is that an SP trait? Variety is the spice of life?
Yeah, except now that's such a cliche that we would want to say it differently. Like variety is like the nutmeg of life.
Okay. You even want variety in the actual motto?
Yeah, yeah. Because like the Guardians have all their, usual phrases like a penny saved is a penny earned.
So by the time Guardians say something, it's like old.
Yeah. Because they gotta like, the joke has to be out there long enough that like it's accepted and familiar to everybody, and then they can use it like 5 years later. So
if you have an ESTJ co-worker and they say something funny, it's like, oh damn it, I can't say that now.
No, because that never happens. ESTJs don't say things that are funny.
And then
no,
Dario
they do,
has,
but not when they're trying to be funny. They are unintentionally funny.
How about this?
When they say stuff like, "I'm trying to get out of the parking lot, and she's trying to park, and then she looks at me like I'm the stupid one." Because what you don't understand is, to an ESTJ, everyone else is in their way, and they have the right of way in all circumstances. Like you're supposed to get out of the way for them. You know, they're the kings and queens of the world, don't you know?
So how about this one? Take tangible action in the moment and current situation. Trust their impulses and have a drive to action. I suppose that goes with the audacity. Yeah, okay. Okay, it's a snore. They learn best.
Carrots are like amazing because, like, you know, you can chop them up and put them in a salad, but you could also just like eat them raw, or you can cook them, and then they taste completely different. You ever notice like some vegetables, you cook them and they taste pretty much the same as when they're raw? Like the carrots are totally different. Like they don't taste anything like they do raw when you cook them.
Well, now we can talk a little bit more seriously, because this is relevant to like how it's best to teach.
I was being serious, man. Do you disagree with me about carrots?
No, I love carrots. I like them more than corn and peas. I love carrots.
Okay, but I mean, do you agree with me about that they change flavor when you cook them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you got to cook them the right amount, not overcook them.
Yeah. So I don't know about like over there is like pot roast a thing? Like is that popular? Like beef with like potatoes and carrots kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Okay.
But like So how about this about the best way to teach SPs? And you were saying that it's changed in your experience, that you think they do more of that now in the high schools.
A little more, yeah. It probably depends on where you are. I mean, some schools I don't see all schools, so I don't know. But yeah, they seem to have opened it up a little bit in terms of some of that, at least here.
So it's like we've got the relevance of what they are learning to what they are doing.
So I don't know about how it comes through on the video, but to me, like your microphone went all like wonky, so it sounded like blah 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 blah.
Oh, okay. Okay. How about now? Is it? How about my sound now?
Yeah, I mean that was really the only time it was like that. There's a few other times where it kind of skipped a little bit, but that was the only time where I didn't understand anything you said.
Okay. Well, I'll let's see what happens here. Right, I'll try again. If it goes wonky again, I'll log out, then log back in, and I'll have to do it very quickly. Right, here we go.
We could just like wrap it up and stuff, and then.
Oh no! We are. Let's see what happens.
You're like,
how about now?
No, I'm not letting you go. You're in
how about now?
Video, whether you like it or not.
Oh no! Is my sound okay now?
Mostly, it skipped a little bit on that last line you said.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound too bad right now.
Okay. I'll.
I don't want to spend too much time, like, then we start sounding like the Verizon guy. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
All right.
So anyway, poor Steve had jumped off a cliff, and he landed on the wings of an airplane that was flying by. And what he didn't know is that the airplane was being piloted by Clark Kent. So even if he hadn't landed on the plane, Superman could have saved him anyway. But he didn't have to, because he landed on the wings of the plane. So it was like a total coincidence.
Right then. Now we can get to the meat of things. Is this it?
What is your favorite meat?
My favorite meat, probably bacon.
Bacon. Yeah, that's a good one.
Right. Okay. Right. So
I think
the Model
I gotta
G.
go with
Yep.
I gotta go with beef fajitas.
Ooh.
Although roast turkey is pretty close.
Right. So this position in the model is basically just the same as the dominant function in MBTI, and Victor has it as this like sets. So you know all those things we were saying before about what motivates SPs. That's like their agenda. That sort of sets all their goals, all the things they're motivated by. It goes in this sort of like management position of, you know, the dominant function, the same as, and Dario Nardi's stuff with the EEG activity will be highest for the dominant function. And also that function is one which is directed outward towards society. So for instance, well, I'll go to it when I show the example of the ESFP. Right. They are. Oh yes, because they're under S.E.E. That's them. Right. And we can go through these bullet points and see how you match up.
Are good at partying, but partying is not limited to, like something that some people think of as a party. Like this is location, somebody's having a party, and they're like, "Hey, come join me at this place."
It's a
Like
mindset.
some of those parties are not even parties. Like they're just gatherings, but there's no actual party to it. You know what I mean? Like it's boring. It's just people standing around talking. Like most ESFPs are not going to be down with that for very long,
Right.
unless everyone is talking to them like about them. Like if the focus is on the ESFP, then it's good. However, that's happening. But if it's not, then it's boring. So an ESFP at a party is not any more likely to be like, "Hey, this is awesome because I love parties," than an ISTJ would. Because an ISTJ might actually be like, people are talking to each other in an expected and traditional manner, therefore I like this. Whereas an ESFP is like, this is boring, nobody's doing anything. Nobody's dancing, nobody's playing a game, nobody's jumping on anything, nobody's like
Trying to set anything on fire.
Yeah, well, nobody's giving me attention,
Yeah.
So it's not fun. So the partying is just like life party, take life and do something fun with it. Let's go do something, let's go out and have fun. And we don't necessarily all have fun the same way. I mean, not even strike the necessarily. We don't. Like there's so many different, there's lots and lots of ESFPs and we don't all have fun the same way. We're not going to enjoy the same things. So don't try to be like, well, I know this ESFP and she likes to dance in fountains, so therefore all ESFPs like that. No, because that's not necessarily the case.
Some like baseball and Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly.
And college football.
Yeah, and if we do like that, like we're going to try to express that in ways that like make an impact or get people's attention, or they make things fun and interesting. So like Wednesday, I'm going to Back to the Future triple feature at the movie theater, because October 21st is this coming Wednesday, is the actual day from Back to the Future Part 2 where Marty goes into the future. So the theaters are like showing all three Back to the Future movies all on that day. And I'm even thinking about like, dressing up for it, like, get it, like have like some sort of costume for the movies. So that's
That'd
the
be
kind
cool.
of thing, yeah, that we enjoy doing, is like going out to something and doing something to make it, fun. So it's like just a good time, to do whatever. So that's why I just wanted to kind of dispel this myth. Like you could say, okay, um, your idea of partying is like going to some place, going to something that's called a party, whereas plenty of us could find that boring and then enjoy something like going to a movie, which wouldn't necessarily be called a party, uh, but it's more fun because you're actually doing something that's fun.
Life's
You
a
know what I mean?
party.
Yeah, it's like making in the most enjoyment out of whatever you do is, I guess, the best way to put it. And like, even if you're stuck in a situation, like the worst is when um, you can't do anything to change it up. You can't. There's no opportunity to like improv anything. But if there's even a slight opportunity to change it up, do something, make it interesting or more fun, then we're going to try to grab that little sliver and make the most of it. So it's
Right.
more about an attitude and that adaptability and taking what's in front of you and making it into something than it is like specific activities.
Right. So this social mission block is basically the same as the Kersey role variants, where so effectively the same as entertainer performer, or Victor would have it as the politician. So like very much like Bill Clinton. And so we can now go down these bullet points in the blue square. Right. So what about this first one, Jeff? Confidently responds to changes in the situation, steering it in the direction he prefers.
Yeah, I was like totally just saying that like 2 minutes ago. It was amazing. Like without even seeing that thing in front of me, I said pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. You got any more examples?
Um, Judy Garland.
Yep. She's an SP.
Yeah, she like way before heavy metal bands were destroying hotel rooms. She was doing that, so she was like a pioneer for SP Nation because she liked messing up hotel rooms. And stuff like there's one story which she said in some interview that she loved kids, like, but getting like encouraging their naughty side, teaching them to swear and to like fight each other and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So this thing here about this is an adaptability thing, but steering it in a direction he prefers. Yeah, trying to make it your own. So we've sort of covered that. So you agree with that first bullet point. How about that second one? Has capacity for being an informal leader who others turn to for help and guidance.
Yeah, which kind of sucks because like we're not usually good at help and guidance, but we're like people will still kind of come to us for that. But like we're the ones that'll tell you how to. We'll try to get you to have fun instead of like moping around about stuff. but we're not the ones to go to for like the practical advice on stuff usually, or like especially like the deep like soul cleansing stuff. That's not us. You go to the
That's
ENFs for that,
NFs.
and you go to the
Yep.
STPs for like the okay, how do we get this done the fastest? Well, maybe STJs depending on what it is. SFPs you go to for let's have fun and forget our problems.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, let me take this opportunity to diss someone.
Ooh.
Because there's this guy that's got a website, Personality Junkie, and
Oh.
apparently a lot of intuitives like his stuff. He writes about intuitives, but his sensor descriptions are not very good, and the especially like the ESFP and ESFJ, seems like he just like watched some reality shows and tried to make a profile on them or something. But there's just random stuff like trying to like justify well how we must use each of these functions or stuff. And one of the things he said was like because of our inferior NI, ESFPs love to give people advice. And I'm like, no. I think in general ESFPs probably hate giving people advice. If we do give people advice, though, it's usually just like let's have fun is our advice. Now, I'm not going to say there's no ESFPs who like giving advice because I'm sure there probably are some out there, but I don't think it's the majority, and I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with NI. I mean, it might, I don't know, but because that's so ill-defined. But anyway, random stuff like that is why you talked about me being a guru or whatever. I'm really not, but I just live and I know I observe people and myself. And I think people that sort of have self-dubbed themselves gurus, if they don't have the actual experience with people, then they can kind of try to make things up based on theories, which isn't usually very accurate.
Yeah.
With
I
people
mean,
that don't live in theory.
like that guy, Dren, on that site, he has written ebooks, and of course, you got to pad them out because a certain page count to reach, and so.
Yeah, well, I think it's just not a very good grasp of the sensing types, especially like ESFP and ESFJ. Like, just it seems like pulled stuff out of his butt on those.
Yeah, he needs to listen to you more.
Well, yeah, everybody should, but
He needs to learn more Kersey theory.
Yeah.
Here's one. Prefers to deal with problems immediately, otherwise may lose motivation due to fighty nature.
Yeah, and also like if there's something that drags on, like whatever stuff feels like an obligation to us is going to be annoying. It weighs on us like we don't like obligations. So the quicker you can, I mean, well, one or the other. The quicker you either deal with the problem head on or you put it off. But you still either way you forget about it because it's like either we knock it out here and then we move on, or we're able to set it aside somewhere and move on. Either way, you know.
Right. I forgot to show something before, but there's a quick thing that Dario wrote about extroverted sensor. Where's the functions? Right. Here. He wrote about extroverted sensing. He says, responds naturally to everything tangible you detect through your senses. Check what your gut instincts tell you. Test the limits and take risks for big rewards. So again, the audacity, the boldness.
Is the selection your own, Ben? Like the square that's colored in?
Yeah, I'll put 0 for me.
So yeah, I think notice that Ben has not me. What does the S.E.E. really one mean? Why'd you write that?
Check what your gut instincts tell you. But I misinterpreted it as gut feelings as like conscience. For like, because I was thinking that didn't match, but I think he means sort of like impulses. So yeah. What else? Let's go back to this one. There we go. We're about halfway down, and then what we got here? So that about you got to the dealing with things immediately, otherwise you'd put them off. Do you do that, or
hot dogs are good with spicy mustard and relish? They have hot dogs in the UK, don't they, Ben?
Oh yes.
Okay. Well, you said they didn't have tacos, so I'm just making sure.
Yeah. Now I won't say that word. I won't offend you.
Have I said that on a video that's actually recorded yet?
No, you've not.
Okay, so I just got to say, I'm not going to make fun of Ben for the way he said taco. All I'm going to say is that since we're talking about this whole Model G thing, this Victor dude, like in the video he did with Rachel, he said something about he asked her to explain what a taco was because he said Victor might not know what that is. If I just got to say, if anyone is watching this video, not just Victor, like anyone who is watching this video, if you never had a taco, then whatever it is you're doing in your life now, it's less important. Stop doing it and get a taco, like right now. You know, that needs to be your life priority now. If you have not had a taco, you need to go get one now. So I want to make sure that people, you know, you talked about like the goals or like agenda or whatever. Like to me, a taco-less existence is like, you know, not worth existing or whatever. That's like my philosophy. So if I can bring the enjoyment, the experience of tacos to more people in this world, even by way of this video, like getting people to end the taco, the taco shaped hole in their lives, you know, to fill that with a taco. That would be, it would bring so much joy to me that, you know, everything else really pales in comparison. Honestly, like, you know, there's people out there that are like working on like biomedical research and stuff like that, and that's, I'm not in any way degrading that or saying that's not worthwhile, but it's more important by far to enjoy tacos. So if you haven't, then whatever it is you're doing, stop right now and get a taco.
Yeah, and that fits in with, but first to deal with problems immediately, you have to solve that taco problem immediately.
Yeah, see, you did it, Ben. You said it.
I know I said it. Like a Canadian.
I wasn't going to mock you because you didn't have to say it.
I know I didn't.
But there is no such thing as a taco. Okay.
So that third bullet point.
Taco.
Do you tend to deal with problems immediately, or do you sometimes put things off?
Well, yeah, one or the other. Either I deal with it immediately or I put it off immediately. Like, I don't spend time, like, you know, going through some long process with problems. I'm not the guy who makes like a pros and cons list about stuff. I don't do that.
No. I'm not quite sure about the next bullet point. Makes decisions based upon actual balance of forces.
Yeah, that sounds kind of like a line from like a He-Man thing or something. By the power of Grayskull.
I think
know, Harry
it
Potter
might
or something.
mean
I don't know Harry Potter, so.
like who seems to have the most authority, but it's a bit vague. How about this one? Both, maybe Bill Clinton might be a good person to talk about with this one. Skilled at negotiations and maneuvering, making good deals with an opposing party. Your Jeffness?
Hmm?
What do you think of that one? For both yourself and for Bill Clinton.
Hey man, you can like do a video with Bill Clinton if you want. You can call him up. I can't speak for that dude.
I'd get a lot of views for that.
Yeah,
but your opinion of him and the deals he did with Newt Gingrich in the 90s.
I don't really have an opinion about that.
Okay. Apolitical Jeff.
I don't want to get into some like history thing, man. Like, I heard like some story about like Clinton made Newt get off the back of the plane, so then he was like, "I'm gonna shut down the government" or something. You know, doesn't that just say like all you need to know about like it's just a bunch of like big kids? You know, that's really what it was about. Like you just imagine like the conversation, like, "No, you made me get off the plane, so I'm not gonna give you the thing." And you're like, "Come on, you're such a doofy head. No, you're ugly, and your mom dresses you funny." That's the negotiation right there, man. He was like, "Okay, 3 beers and 1 dozen wing platter."
I just thought of another
And
one.
Newt was like, "Make it 4, and half the wings are barbecue."
How about
And he's like, Al Gore at that point was like, "I'm getting up, man. I can't sit at this table with somebody who wants half barbecue wings. That's not going to sit well."
Was Reagan an ESFP?
Yeah.
Because he was also known for negotiating with, what was it, Tip O'Neill?
Yeah. I think he actually had a harder job because, like, the deal with Clinton and Newt was, like, it was sort of like new territory because the Republicans took over Congress, and that hadn't been the case in, like, 40 years or whatever it was. And, like, there was sort of that feeling, okay, the people had voted for this big change 2 times in a row, like 92 Clinton got elected, and then 94 like Republicans were kind of, there was all this kind of wave of like everything's all like new and fresh and people want stuff to change. Whereas with Reagan, like when he got elected, he might have had like a personal like landslide or whatever electorally, but it was like less about some kind of let's change the whole direction of the country type thing. And the Congress was like a lot of the old guard, they'd been the same party all those decades, and they were just, so it was like he's going in there saying like, we're going to do these radical things like, cut these tax rates down by huge amounts or whatever. And the congressional leaders are like, what? Like, that's not the way we do things around here, man. Like, we raise taxes, we don't lower them, okay? Like, we don't do that. And Reagan was like, no, we're gonna lower them. And they're like, this dude's crazy. Like, what planet is he from? Like, where you lower taxes? I mean, we don't do that,
It was
so I think he had a tougher job when it came to that because it was like more of a radical concept.
Oh yeah.
The Republican Congress in '94, they got elected like on that platform, like we're gonna, balance the budget and stuff like that. It was like this thing. And so Clinton was sort of like, okay, I get it. Like, no more, like he said, the era of big government is over, blah, 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 you know. And so there was a little bit more of a, they were moving in the same direction as opposed to being like totally opposed.
Oh yeah, because Clinton was always more of a realist. He wasn't a left-wing guy.
No, he
anyway.
wanted to be popular. He was more worried about his own image, like his own, like he wanted people to like him. So he's like, okay, the people want a balanced budget. I'll do that. That's not like going to cause me any problems to do that. Like he wasn't like, you know, I don't get too like deep into politics about it. I'll just say there were certain special interest groups where he still did seem kind of beholden to, but beyond that, he was more like everything's on the table. Let's negotiate whatever, and I'll do the thing that makes people like me. So
yeah, cough, Jesse Jackson, cough.
No. Anyway.
Right.
Newt's a rational type, so he's an NT, so he was kind of more about like, he sort of had this vision for, we can change the system, and he was like a college professor and had these sort of, he was a big history guy and was like, here's these ways that we can, change things up in this way or whatever. So even though of course he's got a big ego like everybody or like all politicians, whatever, but it wasn't as much about like, what can I do that's going to make people like me? He's less concerned about that.
And here's something.
He was more concerned about his latest mistress. Oh.
Whoa. That's true. But mind you, Bill Clinton had a lot of those as well. Here's one that sort of relates to.
Yeah, so there's the SPs are better at covering their tracks. So.
Yeah. Like, in an emergency situation, can carry a really heavy load for a short while.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a general SP thing, is that we kind of do that, operate on adrenaline and do what you got to do in the situation.
Yep.
People often, of other types will view SPs as being lazy in a lot of situations because it's sort of like the whole ant and the grasshopper thing. Like, we're doing all this work and they're just kind of, not working, relaxing. Because we work better like in pressure situations. It's like, boom, you have to deal with this, and then we go. And so that's the kind of thing. It's like once we're in that mode, we can operate faster sometimes than the people that work, have that steady work ethic. Whereas we'll be like, whatever, don't bother me until you need me. And then when you do need me, then we like spring into action and take care of the thing.
Yep. That's it. And there's the hormones have been studied of that. And I'll do more of that in future with Hannah. And
I'll bet you
others. She's married.
You're like, my hormones are going to be more stimulated with Hannah. And I know that's not exactly what you said. I'm just taking little liberties with your phrasing.
Right. Okay. So we're going to be doing but like I said, dopamine response for SPs, where they actually enjoy the pressure to a certain extent.
This is some good dopamine, man. You gotta hit this.
Well, it actually is.
Take a swig of my dopamine.
It actually is stimulated by drugs, because dopamine is it's when people feel pleasure, that's when dopamine goes up, and so when
what about headaches?
Can have
like what causes headaches?
Too much thinking? I don't know.
Yeah, probably so.
Here's one. Hurts. Now here's one you may differ on or not. Pays considerable attention to projecting the right image, e.g., prestigious appearance.
I'm gonna trump Ben here, because like there's moments where Ben will be like, that might be more Enneagram blah. I'm gonna say Enneagram 3s are more likely to be about that.
Right.
So yeah, some of us, but not all of us. Like I'm a 7, so that's not as important to me. But Clinton might be a 3, because he definitely cared about that a lot. I don't know as much about prestigious as it was just whatever he wanted the image of being this guy that got things done and was like unifying and, you know, all that kind of thing, you know,
Yeah,
friendly.
and he was a good student as well because he became a Rhodes Scholar. So
Yeah.
that's consistent with that.
So, yeah.
And that's how he ended up in Oxford and didn't go into the Vietnam War.
Yeah, I would say it's probably not as much about prestige as it is like just again back to I don't know, like what wanting to I don't know, because that's not really
Right.
me. Like I don't
Right,
pay
okay.
attention to that. I guess I don't know. You talk about like the stuff about the three A's. You know, the artistry, audacity, adaptability. That sort of is about image. So we do want to be seen that way, but it's not really about prestige. So
Hmm. Or although SPs do look up to, I think it's been said that I think Kersey said it as well. Is they look up to people who can do it, not what the certificate says, not what the
yeah,
reputation says,
right.
but they see them and they can do it.
Yeah, skills and experience. You know.
Right then. So a little bit of theory. This is for this function maximum energy because it's like the main thing. It's like the dominant function. You know, you
Yeah,
have
I'm
maximum
sorry that I
energy.
haven't demonstrated maximum energy in this video, but I just
And
haven't
then
felt real good this weekend, man.
no, you've been
So
good.
I apologize to the audience for my lack of energy.
You've been good.
Well, thanks.
Right,
I
and
don't
then we
feel like I have been, but you know,
okay.
I'm probably
So
my own harshest critic, except for Bob. Bob's really harsh on me too.
wow. Maybe okay. Maybe we should. Okay, we'll sort out Bob later on.
But I didn't mean to throw you off, Ben.
That's okay. So I'll just do a little bit of theory now. The idea here is yes that this social mission block. So these two functions that like is the artisan performer is wanting to be the center of attention and using people skills to do it. And these functions are, in fact, all of the extroverted functions in the ESFP are directed outwards towards society. And they suppress the introverted functions below it. And basically, it's involved whenever society is involved. Their social role is the entertainer performer. Right. And we'll talk a bit more about other aspects of the model in other Hangouts. Now, I'm just going to make sure that I've gone through all of the SP stuff. Yeah, we did that sheet.
My hair smells good.
Good. Good. Keen insight, yes. We got here on Force. Yep. SP Guru.
Insight keen. No, it's SP Spaz, man. Get it right.
Hey, what have we got here? Resisting the stronger force by maneuvering and forming coalitions.
That's right. A lot of words, man.
Yep. Right. What we got here? We got.
That sounds like the politicians because they're always talking about coalitions.
Yeah. Right. Let's go.
I'm going to unify the coalition of cheeseburger lovers and pizza lovers. Like, you know, they've been fighting for too long. I'm going to bring them to the table together to negotiate.
Right.
We're going to have that. What's that one? It's like the burger with the pizza inside it. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like a layer of like pizza with the burger. You never seen that, man? Look it up. Like, it's online and stuff. It's like a pizza and burger.
I've had something similar. I've seen something similar like the turducken.
Yeah, it's like that, except it's like, again, it's like layers of like burger and pizza and
Right.
stuff. So it's like bringing it together.
Right. So
unifying, like togetherness of unification of the goodness of the two elements combined in the thing that does the thing, and it's good.
So this is how these were Dario's findings on.
Excited by motion, action, and nature, adept at physical multitasking with a video game-like mind, primed for action, often in touch with body sensations, bored when sitting with a mental rote task, strong memory for details and context, use their whole brain to handle crises, maybe impatient to. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, there's like parts of my brain that probably are just sitting there. I don't know if I used the whole thing, but, I don't know. They like just busted out of my head and like hit somebody over the head with my brain and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
remember that, like when Charlie Sheen was doing that interview and he's like, if I gave you my brain, you'd be like, dude, can't handle it.
It's like, I mean, just from a science point of view, he shouldn't say whole brain. He should say neocortex.
Yeah, because cortex sounds cool. Like you can be like, hey, I really like your cortex.
So, do you think this fits you and Morgan? This definition of SE? In fact, maybe
it would fit me, except I'm kind of fat, so I have to get the 3X size, and then it would fit me.
Yeah. Okay. But did you think that particular definition actually fits STPs more than SFPs?
Yeah, it's about the same.
Okay. Right. Oh, you said something interesting.
Might not describe it exactly the same way. Like some SFPs, especially female SFPs, but not limited to. I don't want to be like sexist or anything, but are less likely to describe it that way because we kind of, I think especially ISFPs sort of want to view themselves as being like more gentle and stuff. It's like they can be just as excited by those things, but they may not phrase it the same way they were talking about themselves.
Different hormones.
Yeah, because I remember saying, like, when I posted something out of Please Understand Me on the Typology Central forum, when I was doing my thing explaining the SB temperament, I put in something about, the entertainer artisans being the ones who want to, like, show someone beautiful or exciting or interesting or whatever. And, like, the ISFPs on the forum, like, several of them were like, yeah, that's totally me. So, like, they related to that aspect of it as opposed to, like, the, primed for action thing. Like, that, that's less, that don't quite, like, jump onto that as much. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So, sorry again, what was that? The middle bit you said about, what did they go on to? What did they really catch on to?
Well, I got the darn book, so let me look it up, so I get the words right. Doop 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 doop. Intermission music, interlude, la 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 la. I think it was in. Maybe it's in the reading part. Doop 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 doop.
Yeah, Please Understand Me Too has a nice shiny cover.
Yeah, here we go.
Shiny letters.
Here we go.
Yep.
Tactical entertainers. Drawn to the improvising side of tactical intelligence, entertainers are the friendly, fond-hearted artisans, those SPs who want to amuse or to charm others, and whose first impulse is to inform those around them by making or showing them something beautiful or exciting. There you go.
Right.
Boom.
famous clip of you that Solobot did where you're talking about which types are best at remembering stuff in the short term and in the long term.
Oh yeah, because that was right. That was right out of Nardi's video. The presentation he did about the original like experiments he did. He talked about like he showed him a picture, and then like took it away or something or covered it up, and then asked them what they remembered from it. So yeah.
Yeah, but there's a punchline to this when you describe of like how the SPs were at it, how the
yeah, well, I don't remember the exact words, and it's been a while since I saw it. So
okay.
You know, I don't want to get it wrong, but the basic gist of it was that the SPs remembered more of the details like right after, then they didn't see the picture anymore. Like, but they could like recall it because it was like they were the quickest at like remembering the details like right there in front of them, like right afterwards. And the SJs could do that too, but like he said, like he had the same group back like I don't know a week later or whatever the time was, and at that point the SJs were the best at remembering like what the actual details of the picture was like that, so they had like better long term memory of that. And then with the others, it wasn't divided by temperament, but it was like the NE type, so like the NTP, NFP, basically weren't very good at remembering the details, the physical details of it, either right after or a week later. Whereas the NI types, the NTJs and NFJs, it was like they remembered details from it, but they were wrong.
Yeah, and the way you delivered it in the video is, and they remembered details, and they were wrong.
I didn't do that wrong.
If you want to, you did better.
You misremembered the details of me.
Yeah, if people want to see that clip, it's on Solobot's channel, and he actually loops that bit. And then you said that when you first heard that, you were like laughing out loud at work.
Yeah, because I listened to that video like. Because I mean that video the Nardi did was just like, it was just like him in front of an audience of people. I mean, he had some visual aids, I guess, that he was showing, but a lot of it was just him standing there talking. Yeah. So it wasn't a whole lot of visuals to it, and so I was listening to it at work. Yeah, I laughed when he said that.
Yeah, it was the if people want to see it, it's the Google Authors event, and there's a good-looking woman right at the start introducing him. Right. Extra incentive.
Yeah, if you watch that, then you'd hear like exactly what he actually said, and not my botched remembering of it. But that was the gist of it.
Right.
Cold-blooded.
Right, and then we have. Let's see if there's any more on. Right, I think Dario calls S.E.E. immersing in the present context. So, obviously, very good for sportsmen and sportswomen to be in the present context. Anything about? Oh yeah, here's some information on the hormones. Now, this is in a book called Physique and Character by Ernst Kretschmer, and this was the book that enabled David Kersey to see the artisan temperament. David Mark Kersey, where he talked about Kretschmer. So the cyclothymes are the sensing types, and the schizothymes are the intuiting types. And basically,
temperamental curve.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I know that's what I'm always saying about intuitives is they have a jerky temperamental curve. Like,
yeah, but they also have things
like that. Pretty much is it. Like you could just get rid of all the other descriptions of intuitives and just put jerky temperamental curve.
But also, like you've got so it seems that the SPs are gay in the old-fashioned use of the word. And the SP and the SJs are depressed.
Yeah, and again, just like the thing about SPs in like being that way when it comes to impulsive, the SJs like being that way when it comes to like boring and melancholy. Like
Yep.
I've had ISTJs tell me, yes, I enjoy stuff that's boring and predictable. I want it to be that way. So that they like that.
I can't believe in this book there's like little bits of humor, like they define the word thin as a deficiency in thickness. There's these little bits of humor that they
I like them thick personally.
Yeah, but here, and people think that Kretschmer was this guy that was saying, "Oh, NTs look like this; they look like no." And he said, "No, he didn't say that. They only when the people were psychiatrically of imbalances in hormones. So, and then that's why they had those physical characteristics."
I think you're getting off on a whole like different topic, man.
Yeah, but this is where it came from.
We gotta wrap this up because I'm out of water.
Okay, we're almost there. We're almost at the end. Right. Okay. So, Helen Thomas then she did some research on her own version of the temperament, exactly the same as the Kersey temperaments, and she
I thought Helen
did
Thomas was that old lady, White House reporter.
You know what? Yeah, absolutely right. It's Helen Fisher.
Okay.
Right, and she got sacked, Helen Thomas, when she actually came out and had a gaffe and said that she wanted to get rid of Jews. So on your bike, Helen. So here, so she had a study with 39,913 participants to justify her temperaments. So all those socionics people that don't believe in the Kersey temperaments, they can go suck it, because it's been proven with the science of it. So there you go, folks. You can pause that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like, you know, as people, there's this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Doctrine?
No. Separation, but it's not, it's, I can't think of the word, but like, disconnect.
Yeah.
Between like the online type community and like the rest of the world. In terms of like the things that people, the stuff you're talking about here is like what regular people can see in their daily lives. So they, when you tell them these things, they understand what you're talking about. If you explain to somebody, you're like, this is, you know, like a guardian or an artisan or, you know, whatever, like they could see those people in their line. If you start talking about like, these are the people with tertiary TI, like they have no clue what you're talking about. The average person, that doesn't mean anything to them. And you could take like 2 hours trying to explain it, or you could change the way you talk to something that actually people can understand.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I use the Kersey temperaments when talking to people about, because you only have to remember 4 things. And so for here, the SP is novelty seeking, energetic, restless. And then you've got the SJ builders, moral and traditional, meticulous and cautious.
You have, like, I was trying to make the point that, like, you know, that you have these people in online type communities who act like David Kersey just pulled this out of his butt or something and came up with a bunch of stereotypes, and then that's what, you know, ruined everything or something. The point is he didn't invent those things. He just recognized stuff that was already there, and he sort of tied things together and said, here's the similarities I see to these other systems. But this whole thing of seeing basically 4 types of people has been around like since the dawn of humanity. That was the whole point he was making, is that all of these people over the years have seen these same things consistently appear in people. So to deny those things exist, or just be like, no, we have to make sure we frame it by the use of the 4th function to the, you know, it's like, you can do that if that's what you want to spend your time doing, but don't try to tell me that somehow that is a better way of operating just because it's more deep sounding or complicated or whatever. Like, when in the real world with real people, this way makes a lot more sense because people can actually see it and experience it in their lives, and it doesn't have to be, they don't have to attend 7-hour lectures to understand it.
Yeah, and this was statistically analyzed with these, because there was 39,000 participants, the sample size was large enough to say this is statistically valid, these patterns. And so these are the R values, and an R value of 1 would mean like 100% accurate, but an R value of 0.8 is like really good in terms of a correlation, where of a generalization, of like a general, obviously there's going to be exceptions of people that don't quite fit, but that's a very good number for
and I don't think, you know, I'm not sure about, you know, Fisher, because I haven't actually read that book, but I'd say in Kersey's case, at no point does he allege that anyone is 100% like predictable or something. Oh, well, you know, they do these things, therefore they're this, and they're going to do all of the following things. Like, he never said that. People like to take it and suddenly, like on all these other things, they can generalize, and people realize that it's not 100% of everybody. And all of a sudden, with him, they act like, oh no, this one thing in this description is wrong, therefore throw the whole book out. He's a moron who just goes on stupid stereotypes. It's like, why can you not suspend your generalization in this area? And, you know, and that's why I think it's almost like people act like they're threatened by, you know, Kersey stuff. Like it's like, well, if we don't confuse people with all this complicated stuff, then you know, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to know too much.
Well, I mean, you're talking about socionics being complicated, but the actual science is really complicated, because I mean, I did this at university about 18 years ago, and it's hard for me to get back into it and understand it, because like with the hormones, it's so complicated, and there's so many different hormones involved, and they interact and things change, and I have to do diagrams for myself to sort of re-understand what I used to understand. Right, so let's see if there's anything more on SPs. We will do this in future, where we'll go through the Kersey ESFP profile. And oh yeah, this is Olga. This is how Olga defines SE. We'll go through that in future as well, because we're Jeff is almost cream crackered.
That sounds pretty odd.
Well, it's rhyming slang for
not
knackered.
Bad, though. Yeah, not bad. Just odd.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one last thing. I did
eat dinner at Cracker Barrel tonight, though, so that might have been like a psychic connection there.
Right. Well. Right then, and these are Jack Aaron's definition of the functions, and then he had like separate diagrams.
That's where the bottom row looks like LLOO, so it's Lulu.
Yeah, it's almost like a place in Wales. So this one here, you've looked at these before, maybe a year ago, and you were saying that definition of extroverted sensation is like too much focused on like ESTP-like things.
Yeah, or even stuff that's SJ in some cases, like ambition and territory and stuff like that.
It does sort of fit Trump, though. It's more STP. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think, you know, maybe some STPs are a little more in that direction than others.
Yeah. Yeah, so, folks, this is why I wanted to cover all the Kersey stuff first in this hangout, is to show that Kersey's view of extroverted sensing is really more nuanced than the socionics view of extroverted sensing. And the reason why is that Kersey had huge life experience with SPs. His parents were SPs. He was a fighter pilot in World War II in the Pacific. He says most of his fellow fighter pilots were SPs. He worked for 30 years with troubled and troublesome boys in school. and with juvenile delinquents, and so he really came to the conclusion of, you know, there's certain things you can't change about them. There are things which are temperament related with their behavior, and you have to learn how to redirect their energies, and you can't change them into SJs or any other temperament. SPs are SPs.
Yeah. You tell him, man.
Well, Kersey was an INTP too.
And go get those tacos.
Well, I can't get them to you, but I
What?
think. Oh yes, this is something that Jeff finds pointless, folks.
So we don't need to have it in the video then, right?
Okay, but you find the big N pointless, don't you?
Uh-huh.
The big N.
Because you have yet to tell me what the point is, so of course it's pointless.
The point is that it's the realization when people realize that the N is there in the drawer.
Yeah. And so
that's it. Well, that's it.
Well, right. So again, there's no point.
There's no point. No. And
it's Sesame Street. This video has been sponsored by the letter N and the number 3.
What I could do is start a hangout with, and today we're joined by the big N, and then put the picture on Dario Nardi, the big N.
I guess.
Oh yeah, just a little side note. This is how Victor views the NTPs. Do you get the impression he doesn't quite like them? This is an official slide showing an ENTP from Victor.
This video is not about ENTPs though, man.
No, they're not. Get them out of here. Oh, one thing I could have asked you, we'll ask you in honest, is I was really taken aback by what you were saying about not really feeling guilt. And so I wrote it all down. And you're saying that it relates, yeah, except that it relates to if you affected somebody's feelings. And we'll talk about that in future because it's in relation to a certain function. I think that we have talked about most of the SE stuff. In future, we can do some short videos on going through this thing. We could sort of like go through this and like do some short videos on these on this matrix of traits. Right, then.
Like 30 seconds?
Probably 30 minutes. That's short for me.
Man. Now, how long was this video? Like 9 hours?
It just seemed that way.
Like I was a young man when we started this video, and now I can't find my teeth.
Right. Oh yeah, folks. This is the exact moment when Victor Galenko agreed with Dario Nardi's definition of NE. There's me smiling, and there's Jack not smiling.
All right.
Right. Just a little typological rivalry going on there. Right, and I think
the picture, like the background, with the part of the face, and then the chair, and then all these people below her, like it's a cool image.
Oh, okay. I'll go back. Oh yeah, this of course Gary Coleman. It is in an episode of Buck Rogers. There it is. There you go. The chair. Right.
Yeah, that's almost like an art project right there, man. With the half face and the chair.
Right. So what I did here is I compared. Now Olga is a little bit spicy. And
I'm gonna have to lie down. If I go any longer.
Okay, but what it is her definition of SE sounds very much like Kersey, and I think her definition of SE is better because she's actually like an ISFP, and so she put this. Do you want to do a funny voice, or do you want me to read it out, Jeff?
No, I'm too tired to read.
Okay, I'll read it out. Representation of will as a freedom of mind and body, freedom of action. So already she's talking about freedom rather than power. Willpower, will to acquire the space, willingness to overcome obstacles and persistence, ability to mobilize, stability, a sense of ownership, desire, want, do not want, will to win, volitional quality, evaluation and demonstration, the ability to assess the balance of forces, force the enemy and its ability to resist, to take a position, ownership, possession, money, appearance, beauty, sexual attraction, stopping or pushing actions, agility and quick reflexes, seizing the initiative, confrontation, engagement, impact, expansion, pressure, attack, aggression, violence, protection, defense, resistance, retreat, build strength, power, influence, expansion. So lots more things because she's actually an SP. And I'm glad you put impact in there and freedom. There we go. That's pretty much all she wrote. And that might be...
Okay. Put yourself back on camera.
Put myself back on camera. Right, here. And here we go. Hi, folks.
Okay, I'm crushing your head.
That means that's the SP way of saying, wind it up, Ben. Okay.
No, you know what the SP way of saying wind it up, Ben is? Wind it up, Ben.
Okay. So, bye, folks. This has been the end of the first part of the 8-part video series.
Yeah, and don't cut yourself off, because in like all your other videos, you cut it off before you actually finish your sentence. So, I'm just telling you. You know?
Right, okay, so I cut off the video before okay.
Yeah, you cut it like a little too quickly, because it always ends in the middle of the last thing, your last word or whatever. You don't get the last part in. So.
Right. Okay, so
yeah.
Bye, right,
everybody.
I'm going to go to the opposite extreme. Bye, folks.
Go watch the SP Spaz YouTube channel. It's the best.
Awkward pause. Yeah. You're not going to miss anything I say. Except